Is it slop or is it soup? I've recently had a lot of time to think, and some of the thinks that I've been thinking relate to the state of agentic AI. When the new round of AI kicked off, I was massively skeptical. And recently I've been thinking about my thoughts from the early days from about 2 years ago around two AI concepts. Firstly, the Ouroboros concept, the snake eating its tail. Those training LLMs are so desperately hungry for more input that the models that they either intentionally or not start feeding generative content into their models. This started happening quite quickly with companies using synthetic data to train their models, content that was generated by another LLM. All the major AI companies now who are building models are using large amounts of synthetic data to train their models since they have reached the limit of free scrapable content online. But this is now happening unintentionally as well. In January, reports confirmed that ChatGPT contained references to Grokopedia, X's AI-generated version of Wikipedia. The second concept that I was thinking about was the dead internet theory. This is a concept where there is so much AI slop and bad actor agents online that most of the internet is now taken up with fake content being interacted with fake users. This flood of AI content and interactions effectively drowns out any real discussions online. It's impossible to spend more than 10 minutes on social media platforms and not come across this phenomenon. In a similar way to the synthetic content, the dead internet theory is not just happening unintentionally. A few weeks ago, Maltbot was opened as a social media platform for AI agents to communicate with each other. It's already had 1.5 million agents posting 52,000 posts a day. I had really perceived these two concepts, the Ouroboros effect and the dead internet theory, to be terrible markers of the end of human thinking and creativity. I still do. However, I think my bias against these technologies had hidden something really interesting. Maybe this content isn't brain-rotting slop, but life-giving soup. There is so much AI floating around in the world that, be that LLMs, agents, or generative content and code, that maybe it's not so much a pile of slop, but instead a massive lake of some kind of primordial AI soup, which some kind of future unpredictable technical entities will emerge. The primordial soup theory is basically the origin story of life on Earth. Back in the 1920s, a Soviet biochemist, Alexander Oparin, and John Burdon Sanderson Haldane, a British scientist, independently proposed that the Earth's early atmosphere, loaded with methane, ammonia, hydrogen, and water vapors, combined with energy from lightning and UV radiation, started to cook up simple organic molecules. These accumulated in the oceans, forming a kind of chemical broth where increasingly complicated molecules could form, interacting and eventually self-organizing into something we'd recognize as a life form. Basically, by adding enough source ingredients and enough energy, life would eventually bloop into existence. In terms of AI and software engineering, it felt like this was an applicable analogy. There's so much literal and metaphorical energy being pumped into AI and it's generating a massive amount of stuff. In August last year, I started thinking about how I could test such a concept, and I dug deep, Claude Code assisted, into building a theoretical system. A system that built a survival of the fittest type environment, where agents tried to solve problems provided via a queue, and they would mutate every now and again. Successful agents lived, while others were culled. After about a month of building, I realized at this point I was A, going slightly bonkers, and B, I'd really started to stretch the concept of primordial soup and kind of include a little bit of Darwinism as well. I've just made the repo public. You can check it out here if you are interested at a glimpse into the insanity. The personally concerning thing is that it wasn't mental clarity that made me stop building this platform. It was simply that I couldn't afford the tokens to generate any kind of real data with this system. I couldn't run it for long enough to get any kind of output to see if this was working. Then last week, I started to properly investigate the agentic skills specification. Similar to the MCP spec, the agentic skills spec was developed by Anthropic and then released as an open standard. Skills are a simple, open format for giving agents new capabilities and expertise. These skills are folders of instructions, scripts, and resources that agents can discover and use to do things more accurately and efficiently. In parallel to this, Vercel has created a skills ecosystem at skills.sh that allows users to really easily install these skills via npm commands. This whole concept re-triggered my thoughts around agentic soup, and I wondered if it would be possible to model the concept within this agentic skills ecosystem. And that's how I came up with the concept of Skill Soup, an experiment that allows agents to develop and evolve builder skills that compete in a survival of the fittest style arena. The outcome potentially being some sort of super skills builder that allows people and agents to generate powerful agentic skills easily. Maybe. Within the Skill Soup concept, there are 3 types of skills connected via a centralized platform. Builder skills are the skills that build other skills. This is the part of the system that evolves. The more popular and useful a skill a builder creates, the more likely they are to be used and mutated into new builders. Within the system, there are also built skills. These are the skills that were built by the builders. These are the system's assets. Users test and rate these skills using a simple voting system, and then these votes become the currency of the system that drives the success or failure of the builder skills. And then there's a runner, a skill that contributors can add to their agents that downloads the builders and then selects ideas from a queue that builds skills for those ideas, and then submits the ideas for rating into the system. For those old enough to remember the SETI program, where we all shared our CPU cycles via a screensaver to look for aliens, yeah, it kind of works a little bit like that. The runner allows you to provide your spare tokens from your monthly subscriptions to help boil the soup. All of these skills are compatible with the agentic skills spec and can be installed via skills.sh ecosystem simply with just an npm command. The system manages the enforcement of evolutions and the rating of the skills and the agents. The site is now live at skillsoup.dev. And there are 3 ways that you can get involved with this experiment. The first is simply to submit ideas for skills. Create an idea for skills that you would like to see in your agents. Go wild. Whatever you think might be helpful to you, the more interesting, the better. Secondly, you can try out generated skills and vote on the ones that you find useful. This is the currency of the systems, and it will help us identify which of the builder skills should be evolved and moved forward. Thirdly, you can run the runner on your agents. Simply add via an NCP command, and then you can build 1 or 2 skills from there. By doing so, you are sharing your tokens and distributing the processing power needed so we can test this experiment. But I should share a warning. The site is a concept, it's an experiment. I've not really put any safeguards in place. There is no vetting of ideas, skills, or builders, other than the natural forces of voting within the system and the safeguards to whatever LLM that the builder is using. All of the code for the builders are open. You can review them on GitHub before installing them, and I would suggest that you try and sandbox this in some way. So, get involved and let's see if we can ploop something interesting into existence.